AMD's big Navi presentation came out on October the 28th, and for the first time in a number of years, AMD appears to have been able to match their competitors' best in terms of raw performance. 3 graphics cards were announced. The focus of the presentation was on the Radeon 6800 XT, which was shown trading blows with Nvidia's 3080, which happened to be the focus of their presentation a month or so ago. The 6800 XT looks to be competitive with it at both 1440p and at 4K resolution. AMD are definitely marketing this card as a 4K capable one, and its launch price is set at $650, which is $50 below the price the GeForce 3080 is meant to start at. As well as this, the 6800 XT by default consumes 20 watts less of power, but has a rage overclocking button that improves its performance but presumably will consume considerably more power as well. They showed some results from this, but bear in mind these were also using a smart access memory feature, which I'll talk about later, and most importantly, they didn't say how much of the performance increase was from this and how much was from Rage. But let's just say that if you want to replicate the performance shown here, you'll need to be using a new Ryzen processor and motherboard as well. The second card they mentioned was the cheaper Radeon 6800, but even that one comfortably beat the previous gen flagship GeForce 2080 Ti by 18%. Again, this was done using the Smart Access Memory feature, so without knowing how much of a difference that feature makes, I can't say how the 6800 will perform in other computer setups. While it was compared to the 2080 Ti in benchmarks, it's a lot more relevant to compare the vanilla Radeon 6800 with Nvidia's new 3070, which launches tomorrow, and which was reviewed yesterday. I suspect this was a deliberate choice by Nvidia to sandwich this AMD announcement between Nvidia news, but from what I can see, these two cards don't appear to directly compete with each other. For a start, the 6800 is $80 more. This is an odd choice in my opinion. I guess it's done to make the 6800 XT appear to be more desirable, but when Nvidia's GeForce 3070 is such excellent value for money, I just don't see the 6800 remaining at $580 for long. As well as the price premium, it consumes 30 watts more power than the 3070, and maybe, if it's 18% faster than the 2080 Ti, then the 6800 could be a bit faster than the 3070 as well. But if there's going to be a price war anywhere, then I expect it to happen between these two cards. Just days before the Radeon 5000 launch, there was a bit of a price war, so depending on how the 6800 fares in reviews, I wouldn't be surprised if prices shifted in the lead up to its launch next month. Towards the end of the presentation, Lisa Su revealed the last and fastest card of the 3, the 6900 XT. This is Big Navi, fully unlocked and when overclocked, seems capable of matching or even slightly beating Nvidia's top-of-the-line GeForce 3090 card. The manner in which the 6900 XT was presented was very much like how Jensen announced the 3090 too. They don't seem to be the focus of the presentation. The way they're slipped in at the end almost seems like these cards are intended to be beyond flagship performance, serving as the company's halo products, and at beyond flagship prices. Lisa used this opportunity to take a few swipes at the 3090 though, first remarking on how the 6900 XT didn't need to be any bigger than the 6800 to deliver this level of performance, implying that the 3090 does.
And you'll see that it's actually relatively compact for all the performance that it delivers. It's actually the same size as our 6800 XT card.
And also by announcing that it will launch for $1,000, which is $500 less than the 3090 currently sells for. Obviously these are both cards priced beyond what most gamers are able to spend. For most people it shouldn't matter how these top of the line cards perform, but inevitably it does. Having a top performing card improves a company's reputation in the eyes of consumers. By being unable to match Nvidia's best, for generations AMD may have been seen as an underdog. But now that AMD is able to compete at the ultra high end again, it may have a benefit to how people perceive their product lineup as a whole. This is the first time in years that AMD can claim to have matched Nvidia's best. Recent attempts like the Radeon 7, Vega 64 and Fury X have fallen short, competing better with Nvidia's second fastest offerings. The last time AMD could claim to have been ahead in performance was with the Radeon 290X, way back in 2013, and even that was a short-lived victory. So this is why the 6000 series is such an important moment for AMD's graphics division. They haven't looked this competitive since their 7000 series. As well as fast performance, all three of these cards have a generous 16GB of VRAM, which is more than what the GeForce 3070 and 80 currently offer. The 3070 has 8 and the 3080 has 10. But this is something the cards have been criticised for by some people who don't think it's enough RAM to be future-proof, especially as the next generation of consoles will be coming out with plenty of VRAM. So for those people, the new Radeon 6000 cards will certainly look appealing, and I wouldn't be surprised if Nvidia at some point announces GeForce 3070 and 80 cards with more VRAM in order to compete. This isn't something that the GeForce 3090 needs to worry about though, since that already comes with a huge 24GB of VRAM. I feel bad that even though it's AMD's launch, I'm mentioning Nvidia's cards just as much. It's inevitable really, given that they were the first to launch, but I think AMD deserves a bit where I just talk about them and what they've managed to accomplish with this generation. So here it is. With this generation, AMD hasn't just upped performance, they've also integrated more features. Most important of these is perhaps ray tracing, which wasn't covered as much as I had hoped for in this presentation. But they did at least suggest support for it, though we'll have to wait a bit longer to see what the card's capable of here.
Real-time ray-traced shadows allow us to introduce additional shadow casting lights into the scene.
Here you can see ray tracing evident and how the shadows are interacting with your character.
AMD's main focus was on a number of DirectX 12 features, which they've included under their Fidelity FX umbrella, and there was mention of a reduced latency feature which they're calling Radeon Boost. There was a time when performance was king, but the extra features that come along with it are growing increasingly important with every generation, so I wasn't surprised to see so much emphasis put on these, because it's getting to the point where some features can command a price premium in the eyes of consumers. Drivers will also be an important area to work on. The 5000 series definitely damaged AMD's reputation, with numerous reports of black screening and other problems. This is not something you want from an expensive new piece of hardware, so I'm hoping for AMD's sake that they've majorly improved the drivers in time for this release. I know already that there will be some people who will avoid the 6000 series just because of the reputation that AMD's drivers already have. The efficiency of these cards is also important to mention. Typically, graphics cards rely on smaller nodes to advance efficiency, but AMD was already on 7nm before this generation, so to be able to claim 50% better efficiency this time around is a great achievement. Compared with their previous generation, under very specific conditions, the 6800 XT delivers a rather suspicious looking 54% more performance per watt, and the 6900 XT offers 65% more. They showed a breakdown of where these improvements came from, which mostly comes down to adjustments to the card's design, like the 128MB of superfast Infinity Cache, which I don't have much to say about, but it sounds like a clever way of getting more out of less. And perhaps some of this efficiency improvement is down to sneaky adjustments to how efficiency is measured in the first place. Both XT cards, by default, seem rated for 300 watts, and I think this is the power rating at which the efficiency improvements have been calculated at. But these cards also have a rage setting, which overclocks them at the click of a button, squeezing a bit more performance out of them. This will no doubt come with disproportionately more power consumption, but it is nice to know that you have the choice between improved efficiency or more performance. All in all, I would say that the 6000 series has surpassed my expectations. After the teased performance at the start of the month, I was expecting Big Navi to match the GeForce 3080, but I wasn't expecting them to be able to compete up to the 3090 level. So that's excellent. But remember, we are going by AMD's own slides here, and while I don't expect them to lie, I do expect them to show their products in the best possible light. So here are the things that concern me from this presentation. We still haven't seen ray-traced performance. In the presentation they briefly mention it while showing some not very impressive gameplay footage. I was hoping they'd make a bigger deal about this feature, perhaps dedicating a section of the presentation to it, instead of only talking about it in passing. This past year or so, ray tracing has become an important feature in PC gaming, and a fundamental part of the next generation of consoles. It seems odd to avoid it when talking about new graphics cards, especially in the high end. My fear is that this was done because Nvidia are ahead of AMD here, but I guess we'll have to wait for benchmarks. My next concern, well, it's less of a concern and more of a curiosity. I want to know how they're going to counter Nvidia's DLSS feature. It's no secret that I really like DLSS. It intelligently upscales images to provide anti-aliasing, more detail and higher frame rates. It's like magic really, but it's supported in just a few games at the moment. AMD might actually be in a better position to make a smart upscaler, since these new RDNA 2 graphics cards are powering the next generation of console games, many of which will be ray traced and upscaled. Surely it wouldn't take much to bring those features across to desktop. They briefly cover super resolution in the video, hinting that it'll be an optional setting to give users more performance when using ray tracing.
And are already working on a super resolution feature to give gamers an option for more performance when using ray tracing.
Yeah, that sounds similar to DLSS in function to me. They also talked about optimized denoising, which is used to improve the quality of real-time ray tracing. And on top of this, they mentioned their Fidelity FX features, which I guess will also be used to enhance visual clarity in games. They're taking a leaf out of Nvidia's book here. Nvidia likes to give technologies an Nvidia-only branded name, like RTX and G-Sync. AMD has similar technologies to these, they're just called DXR and FreeSync, and anyone can use them. So in a way, I feel like they've had to push fidelity effects to give their brand the same premium feature appeal as Nvidia's been doing for years already. I don't even know if any of these things are AMD exclusive, they're all just part of the DirectX 12 standard, but I'm happy in a way that AMD's at least trying to make them sound exclusive. I'm looking forward to seeing how much of an improvement these features can have on performance and visuals in games. And the last thing that was mentioned in the presentation that I'm a bit worried about is the Smart Access Memory. While it sounds like a good feature, I worry for what it means for users who don't have support for it. They didn't say how much of the performance increase was from Rage and how much was from this SAM technology. So my worry is that this Smart Access Memory has helped AMD to beat Nvidia in these benchmarks, and that users on different PC setups won't be able to replicate that level of performance if they upgrade to one of these new Radeon 6000 cards. In short, SAM requires a Radeon 6000 series graphics card, a Ryzen 5000 series processor, and a 500 series motherboard, and it sounds like it lets the CPU access the GPU's memory to somehow improve gaming performance. But beyond that, very little has been said about it. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that as well. But at least now we have performance figures, and 2 of these new cards will be out in under a month. As usual, wait for benchmarks. While 2020 won't be remembered as a good year, it has been an excellent year for computer hardware. Good guy AMD for giving us a reason to stay inside.